Hello to everyone listening to us. I am Renata, the conference host, and our today's guest is Dr. Laura Markham, who is the author of Peaceful Parent, Happy Kids, How to Stop Yelling and Start Connecting book. Another one, which is my favorite, Peaceful Parent, Happy Siblings, How to Stop the Fighting and Raise Friends for Life. And now her latest book, The Peaceful Parent, Happy Kids Workbook, which I have myself, and I have jotted down several ideas, feelings, because I got lots of feelings reading this workbook, but that was very helpful. And you also teach parents how to support themselves and kids during parenthood across the world. You have a wonderful website, ahaparenting.com, and I'm very happy to have you here with us today. Welcome.
Thank you. I'm delighted to be with you.
I would like very much to talk with you about children's fighting, because I guess as a mom, I'm the most triggered by that, especially. So maybe we're going to start with siblings fighting. So as a mom, when my two children fight, I'm like torn in two, because if it was another child, I would go like, oh, boy, you, and yeah, he did something to you, and another kid is mean, yeah. Come to me, I'm gonna hug you. But then this is my both children, and I love them both, and I suffer for both of them. And it gets on my nerves, it makes me crazy, and I just don't know what to do. And I don't want to side with either of them. And I just don't know how to stop it, because I feel like bleeding myself inside. So what do we do when our children fight?
Well, the first thing we do is what you just said. We don't side with one or the other. That's very important, because even if one of them is wrong, if one of them is hurting the other, we stop the hurting, we protect both children, but we don't make the child feel like they're losing our love, because that just makes the fighting worse. So let's look at an example of fighting. Here are two children fighting. One of them wants to play the game this way, and one of them wants to play the game that way, okay? And they're fighting with each other, and they're yelling at each other. And we hear it from the other room when we come running in, and we don't know what really happened. We haven't seen the whole thing. And even if we did, even if we're in the kitchen, we're cooking, we can see it happening. We know one child is being mean to the other one, we still don't know what happened earlier or yesterday, right? So we come in and we try to decide what's right or wrong usually, but we don't need to do that. And we can't actually do that fairly. So instead, we can come in and say, whoa, 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 I hear some loud voices. Or those are some words that could really hurt someone's feelings, we might say. And then let's take a deep breath. I'm here, we can handle this. So you're trying to de-escalate the situation, to settle things down, to help both children feel safer. Because why are they attacking each other? They're attacking each other because they want to get what they want. And they're attacking back because they don't feel safe, because they're feeling attacked. So if we can create safety with our presence, then they can stop attacking each other, and they can take a breath, and then they can start communicating. So our job is to come in and create safety. Now imagine that you're one of the kids and there's another kid, and I come running in, I'm the mom, and I say, stop acting that way. I say to you, stop acting that way to your sibling, your sister or brother. You know better. You're the oldest. You should know better. Right? Now, what would you feel at that moment?
Unloved. I was like, this is not me. This is him. Why are you all talking to me? Why are you all looking at me?
Right. Why is it my fault?
Yeah.
Right. My sibling is wrong. I mean, the reason we're fighting is that I think I'm right and my sibling's wrong. So of course you feel like, and what if you're fighting and I come in and I don't say it to you, I say to your sibling, you should know better. Stop that right now. How could you say such a thing to your sister? Now, what are you thinking?
Ha ha ha. Good
Yes.
to you. Next time you knew that you're gonna get into trouble and then you leave me alone.
Yes. Yes. I won.
Yeah.
I'm the good child. I like being the good child. I like being the one mommy protects. So I'm going to make sure that I tell mom everything bad my sibling does. So mom remembers that I'm the good child and that's the bad child. And mom always takes my side. I won. I'm loved more. Right.
Yeah, exactly.
So what's the takeaway there for the child who feels that the mother didn't understand them? What does that child walk away feeling and thinking?
That he's loved less than his sibling, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. She doesn't understand. She never understands what I feel, what I need, no one ever sticks up for me. I hate my sibling. I can't wait till I get my sibling alone, right? And mom doesn't care about me. Nobody cares about me. I better fight harder for what I want because no one's looking out for me. So have we just increased the fighting or decreased the fighting in our home?
Increase.
Yeah, yeah. And what if we didn't go in the room? What if, because some parents will say, well, let them work it out themselves. It's bad to intervene because we see if we intervene, it gets worse. So what if we just don't go in the room and we say they're going to work it out? What happens then? So they work it out. I'm listening from the kitchen, or maybe I'm not even going to listen. It's too upsetting. They can work it out. What do you think happens then?
I guess we both have this feeling that we are not sure what we're doing here. I want something. I don't know if that's what I want. My sibling is mean to me, and there is no one for us to help us to sort this out.
Right. And there's no one to help us sort this out. Absolutely. I feel like I don't know how to work this out. But also, if I'm the littler one, then the bigger one might scare me. Like, and I would be like, oh, okay, you can have it.
Yeah.
And the bigger one's like, yeah, I can get what I want by being mean. And the little one's like, I always get pushed around. I'm a victim. And the takeaway there is that that's the way they get what they want, by misusing their size and their power. Or if they're the little one, sometimes they can get what they want by crying and screaming that the older one did something to them. So they both learn patterns, habits of getting what they want that are not things we want them to learn, right? And that they take away and they use for the rest of their lives then. And they assume, the research shows that they assume it's okay. Because if mom didn't want this to happen this way, she would have intervened. She tells us what to do other times. So why wouldn't she come in and make this better? It must be okay for the older kid to act like a bully, or the younger kid to act like a victim and go screaming to mom every time, right? So when we don't intervene, we're leaving children to figure it out themselves, and they do not have the capacity to figure it out themselves yet. We have to teach them the skills. So what can we do instead of these two things? There is a way to do it. And you already said it. It's about not taking sides. It's about, when we go into the room, acknowledging both kids' point of view, right? So imagine you're fighting with your sibling and I come into the room and I say, whoa, let's take a breath. It's okay. I'm here now. I've got you. We're going to work this out. And then I acknowledge, I don't know what really happened, right? I just came in the room, but I know that you're both upset. And I say, you are both so upset about this. I want to hear from both of you, and I want you to tell each other why you're so upset, but let's calm down first. And I put my hand on one on each child, right? So there's one, we say, we're going to hear from your sibling first, right? The other kid. And then we're going to hear from you. And you're going to start, and you can just alternate who gets to go. If you're just starting this, you could keep a coin in your pocket, and you could flip the coin and say, okay, heads or tails, the one with, you're always heads, you can go first if it's heads. If it's tails, your sibling goes first. You could also always have the younger one go first if you want, but usually that's not so good, because then the older one feels like they always get to go first, right? So unless that's not as good as being able to remember who went first last time. So you say, okay, it seems like you have something very important to tell your sibling. And you might sit down instead of standing. Sit down. Let's just sit down right here on the floor or sit down right on the couch. And all right, now you go ahead. And they will start by yelling, probably. They will start by saying, she's bad, she's wrong, I'm right. And you stop, you say, let's take a breath. You can say what you want and what you need without attacking your sibling. That's what you say to them. Let's take a breath. Let's start over. And they're like, what I want is, I want her to stop calling me names. And that's valid, right? To say that. You say, and so they say, and I need her to pay attention to the rules and not to cheat at the game. And the other kid's interrupting, saying, I wasn't cheating, he was cheating. And you say, right now we're listening to your brother. Let's take a breath. We're gonna listen. And then you're gonna speak. And I really wanna hear what you have to say. It sounds like you have something very important to tell us, to tell your brother and me. We're gonna let your brother speak and then you're gonna speak. And then we go back and say, okay, go ahead. So I heard you say that you want your sister to play by the rules and you want your sister not to call you names. Is that right? Yes. Okay, I hear you. And then you turn to the other kid and you say, can you tell your brother or sister what there's two things we want this person to say. What did they hear their sibling say? And what do they want to need? And you can say that to them, depending on their age. If they're 4, you can't do 2 things. You can only do one thing. And this works with 4-year-olds, but you have to keep it simple. If they're 10, you can say, that's what I heard your brother say. Did you hear the same thing? And she'll say, yes, I heard it. What did you hear him say? I heard him say he wants me not to cheat, but I wasn't cheating. And I heard him say, not to call him names, but he was acting like a baby, right? So, and you say, you heard what your brother said, but the way you said it, you're attacking him. You just called him a name again. And then you reinforce house rules. Your house rules are, we don't call names in this house. You can say what you need without attacking the other person. We don't call names. Calling him a baby made him feel bad. He just asked you not to call him names. And that's our house rule. We don't do that. Can you tell your brother what you want and need? And she'll say, he doesn't understand the rules, and whether she was cheating or not, we have no idea, right? Parents will say to me, but I don't know, was she cheating? It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. She'll say what she wants and needs, and they will tell each other, and they're calming down now. And then you say, well, we have a hard situation here. When they both, so you heard your brother say this, and what did you hear your sister say? I heard her say, she thinks I don't understand the rules. So we have a hard situation here where you both have a different idea about the rules, and that makes you feel like he doesn't understand them, makes you feel like she's cheating. You have a different idea, and you got really frustrated, so you called him a name, and it really hurt his feelings. So what are we going to do to make things better here? And they look at you like, what do you mean? And you say, well, you don't have to play together. You could decide not to play together. And you could decide to play a different game. You don't have to play this game. But if you're going to play this game, you need to agree on what the rules are, right? And then it'll be okay and you could have fun. Because if you're not having fun, you shouldn't play together, right? What are we going to do? So that's one thing. And the other thing is, and it sounds like you really hurt your brother's feelings when you called him a baby. Seems like you need to make things better with your brother. Mm. So that's a repair. I'm not punishing her for breaking the house rule. And I am asking her to make things better with her brother because she hurt his feelings. And she says, all right, I'm sorry I called you a baby, right? She's not feeling it right now, but she's like, all right, I'm sorry I called you baby. And he goes, okay, then it's done. Or he says, that doesn't make me feel better. You don't mean that. You always call me a baby. Then you have a bigger challenge and you say, so I'm hearing you say that you feel like your sister calls you baby a lot and it really bothers you. You can tell your sister that. And he says, I'm telling her right now, it bothers me when you call me a baby. I'm not a baby, I'm 6 or whatever he says. And she says, maybe she doesn't say anything like you act like a baby, she might say. And you say, that's still, it sounds like you don't like how your brother responds to some things, and you can tell him about those things. Like if he, with things that bother you that he does, like maybe he throws the board game and runs out of the room, you can tell your brother if there are things you don't like. But I just heard you again call him a name, and he asked you not to and told him it hurts him. And that's not okay. That's our house rule, is we don't call names. And it's okay to be mad at your brother. It's okay to tell him what you're mad at. And it's okay to tell me, and I'll always understand. It's not okay to call him names. And you do need to make it better in a way that feels better to him. So notice any parent listening to this is thinking, oh my God, I can't do this. First of all, dinner's burning. Secondly, my kids would be screaming at each other, right? It's not going to work. So what I would say is take it one step at a time. The first thing you do is you don't take sides, right? You acknowledge everybody's position so they don't feel bad and resentful, and they start to be open. They start to feel safer and more open to working things out. That's the first thing. The second thing is you do have house rules. Maybe your house rule is, we don't put our hands on each other in anger ever. You may not hit your sibling, no matter what. And we don't call names. You don't need very many house rules, but those would be two really good ones to start with, right? And the other thing is you can separate them if you need to. And then you want to do preventive maintenance that helps them feel better about each other. So if this sister has a chip on her shoulder, she's mad all the time at her brother because he's the little one and mom treats him differently and he's always on her lap. Well, maybe the sister needs a little extra listening from you. Maybe you need to spend some extra time with her and to say, it's hard to be the big sister. Sometimes you get so angry at your brother. Of course I do. It's not fair. You're always nicer to him. And you need to do that listening. You need to do that validating with her and say to her, it must be so hard if you think I love him more. I could never love anyone more than I love you. We as parents need to remember that we need to do that work on a preventive basis for children to get along in the moment. So it's not just what you do in the moment, it's also the prevention. But every step in the right direction makes it easier, right? And also I've heard from parents over and over that it takes a couple of months, depends on how old your children are, but even 4-year-olds can learn to do this with each other. And when we keep intervening this way, they'll start to say to each other, even when we're not in the room, you can hear them from the other room saying things like, don't call me names. That's our rule. I don't like it when you say that. It hurts my feelings. Bingo. That's what we want them to learn. And for the rest of their life, they will have the skill to stick up for themselves, right? Which we want them to develop a voice, to tell their sibling how they feel, right? Very important. Instead of us saying, stop talking to your sibling that way, we say, you can tell your sibling that you don't like it when she says that to you. When she called, you can tell your sibling that you don't want her calling you names. I don't want you calling me names. Okay, right? When they hear it from each other, they hear the impact in a different way than when we step in. And also when we step in, it makes them feel not loved, as you say. So all of this is step by step. You don't have to do it all at once, but you'll find that every step you take in the right direction helps to settle things down.
I was listening to and thinking like, oh my gosh, you are so natural at it. Like you are perfect. And when everyone listening is like, oh, how do I get to do this? Where do I start? And I'm going to tell you what gets in my way. It's not even that I'm tired or I'm discouraged by this practice. It's just that I have all those stories in my head, I guess, in that moment about what that means, about my kids being mean and unpolite and they never learn. And why does it have to do that long? And all those stories is like, so I guess it's all about our own emotions, right? How do we go there and how do we feel?
Such a beautiful question, because it's always about our emotions first. Parenting starts here and here. That's where parenting starts. It's not outside us with the children. It's always here. So if we're running in the room to intervene, coming from the place of, oh, they're doing this again, they'll never get along, how come I've messed up so much as a mother that they're doing this with each other, right? If we're thinking that as we go in, do you think we'll be able to settle the situation down and help our children feel safe? No.
No.
Whereas if we can talk ourselves down, the stories in our head, right? I love what you just said about the stories. So I'm going to suggest that every single person listening, write down right now on a piece of paper next to you, what stories do I have in my head about my children fighting? And write it down later. You can't do it right now because it'll take you 20 minutes, but write it down later. My story is that if I were a better mother, they wouldn't fight. My story is that he's always mean to her. She's always mean to him. The older one's mean. The younger one is a brat. Whatever, that I can never get anything done around here without having to do this. Why does it take so long? Whatever, right? There's all these stories. So write the stories down later. And then allow the possibility that those stories are not true, that there's a better interpretation of what's happening. So why does it take so long? Here's an answer to that. It only takes so long because they don't yet have the skills. Once they have the skills to be able to say, it hurts my feelings when you call me names, then, because right now she calls him a name and he hits her, right? But if he had the skill to say, it hurts my feelings when you call me names, then he's not hitting her, right? So already we know once they gain the skills, that helps. But there's another thing, remember, it's not just skills. They have to feel safe, because if he feels like she calls him names and he has nothing he can do that will matter, he's going to hit her, because what else is he supposed to do? So he has to feel safe. He has to feel like he has backup. Like, number one, there's a parent nearby who will come and help. And number two, she'll listen to him and she'll stop. So how do we get him to know that so he doesn't have to hit her? Well, we have to intervene. We have to intervene. It usually takes 2 or 3 months of us being ready to intervene. And you can simplify the rest of your life for that time period. You can say, I'm going to cook simple meals. I'm not going to do anything that takes a lot of time. If I have a younger, even let's say I have a third child, a baby, I will go into the room where the 2 older children are playing, and I will sit with the baby to nurse them or to feed them or to do something so that I can keep my eye on what's happening and be nearby if they need me. For 2 or 3 months, I'm going to be their backup so they feel safe, so they don't have to escalate. My job is to de-escalate. So again, with the story in my mind is, why does it take so long? The answer is, it only takes so long until they, 1, feel safe so they don't have to escalate, and 2, learn the skills to answer each other. That both things have to happen, and I can provide that. It will take a little time, but I, as the parent, can provide that, right? If there's another story, like if I were a good mother, they wouldn't fight. That's just not true. Are human beings born knowing how not to fight? No, human beings are born knowing what they want, or at least hopefully, knowing what they want. Like, I want this, I want that. And then we spend our whole childhoods learning how to get what we want in a way that doesn't hurt other people. And that's not so easy to do, but we all have to learn it, right? And wouldn't it be great if everybody learned that in childhood? Not everybody does. So we're teaching our kids how to communicate what they want. And we will start to hear them saying things like, when will you be done with that toy? I'm next. I want to use the toy next. Are you done yet? Oh, when will you be done? Will you give it to me when you're done? They will actually say such things to each other if they know that the rule is that they have to wait until the other one is done with it, and then the other one gives it to them. If they know that's the rule, they won't like it, but they'll do that. And they will start to communicate about it constructively, right? So another skill that they learn. But notice it depends on, they have to trust that they'll get the toy eventually, just like they have to trust that we'll be there as backup if they need us, right? So part of what we're doing is we're establishing that there are rules in our household, and everybody plays by the rules, and everybody gets a turn eventually, right? And you don't get a turn just because you scream and yell. You don't get a turn because you hit the other kid or grab it from them. You don't get a turn because you beg mommy for a turn. You get a turn when the other kid is done, and then it's your turn for as long as you want it, and no one will take it away from you, right? So whatever your story is in your mind, there's an answer for that. And if you don't know what the answer is, do some little research, like on my website, all of these answers are there. The AHA Parenting website you mentioned, it's free. You can go on the website and you can write sharing, right? Or teach kids to share in the search box, and you will find all of these ideas. And you can say, oh, that's the answer to this. I can get rid of my story about this, about how they'll never learn to share. Actually, they will learn to share, and here's how they're going to do it, right? So whatever your stories are that are disabling for everyone listening, you can give yourself alternative ideas. So you're not just automatically running in there upset at your children. You can run in there, you can walk in there, you can take a deep breath on your way, you can slow yourself down and say, as long as they're not hitting each other, you can slow yourself down and say, let's all calm down now.
So I guess the truth is that in order to de-escalate our children fighting, we need somehow de-escalate all the stories going on in our head and take a little bit of time to ourselves, like to just a few breaths, like, or a few minutes.
I love that.
We go there and we share our struggle.
Yes. Yes, we just create more struggle. Yeah, you're totally right. If we go in there with heightened emotions, we create more heightened emotions in our children. They don't feel safe, and it escalates, the conflict escalates. And often that's what we do. So I love what you said. You take a few breaths or you take a little time. And sometimes parents will say, but I can't take time. If I wait, he'll hit her. And that's okay. So if that's the case, then as much as possible, take the time before that. Like if you know that every afternoon before dinner, as you're trying to get dinner on the table, they're fighting with each other because that's the end of the day and everyone's tired and they got home from school. And then make sure before they get home from school or before you leave work that you take a few minutes just to calm yourself and to remember, oh, I have this story. It's not true. I'm an okay mom. There's nothing wrong with me as a mom. I'm more than enough as a mother. It doesn't mean there's anything wrong with me. It's normal for children to fight. That's how they learn the skills to work things out, and I can support them. It's all okay. I don't have to get upset about this, right? Talk yourself down in advance so that when the situation happens, you're more able to show up as the parent you want to be.
You mentioned school, and I remembered all those, calls we get from school or emails like, your child hit another one. So please do something. They don't say that, but we feel this pressure, like I have to do something. So I have to somehow control my child at a distance. I'm at my office, the child is at school, but somehow I'm responsible for him behaving. And it feels so powerless. It feels like there's nothing I can do. So maybe we could address that in both, like in 2 times. So first of all, about this powerlessness in parents, like how do I get to control my child's behavior at a distance? And then what could be done about that when fighting happens at a public place like school or playgrounds with other children?
So first of all, are we able to control our child? No. Can you control another human being? No. What you can do is you can have influence, right? What gives us influence with another human being?
Connection.
Yes, exactly. When we think about another adult, whose opinion matters to you most? People you trust and love and respect, right? And they have your best interests at heart. I'm not going to listen to someone who is only out for themselves, but I will listen to someone who I know cares about me, right? Same thing for our children. If they know we care about them, if they know that we want what's best for them, if they trust us and feel loved by us and treasured by us, then they're open to our influence, right? Okay, so the first thing is we're always told to control our children, but we can't. The second is we can have influence based on our connection and also based on our role modeling. If we're at home with our children and we get upset and we start smacking our child, right? We're angry and we say, you never listen to me, and we smack them. They go to school the next day and they get angry at someone and they're going to smack them, right? It's because we role model that that's how you solve problems. That's what you do when you have big feelings. So we absolutely have to be a role model for learning to self-regulate. The more we are able to say, I'm very angry at this moment, and I'm going to calm down, right? And we could be angry at our child for something they did, or we could be angry at, something unrelated to our child, but we're role modeling that we calm down, that we all get angry and we all have a responsibility to manage it. If we role model that, our child is more likely to start demonstrating it, to start saying to their sibling when you're there, I'm really mad at you. I'm going to go calm down. Can you imagine how wonderful that would be if they did that? And they're more likely at school to say to the other child, I'm really mad at you. I'm going to go calm down, right? Or I'm going to go get the teacher to help. Sometimes at schools don't want the teacher to help. Schools will say, you're tattling. You're coming to the teacher and telling the teacher what another child did wrong. But then the child has no backup. Of course they hid if they have no backup, if no one will help them. So one thing, when the school writes you and says, this happened, one thing you want to know, maybe not immediately, not before you've talked to your child, but at some point you want to know, was the teacher there to help? What would have happened if your child had gone to the teacher? Because children will hit instead of going to the teacher if the teacher says you're tattling, right? So that's very important. What's the school policy? Anyway, your child comes home from school and you've gotten this email. And let's say that the rest of the time you've been as connected as you can be, and you've been as good a role model as you can be, but your kid still hit someone at school. Your kid comes home and you say, hi, sweetie, and you give them a hug, right? And then you say, so I got an email today from the school. They said you had a hard time in school today. I'm so sorry. What happened? Not what happened, what did you do? But tell me about it. I'm so sorry. Tell me about it. It's an invitation. It's an invitation to share this. You're not scolding them. You haven't heard anything they've said yet. You're not scolding. You're saying you had a hard time and I'm sorry about that. Tell me about it. Right? Okay. Your child says, it wasn't my fault. This other kid shoved me. We were standing in line and the other kid shoved me out of line. You say, wow, that sounds hard. How did you feel? What did you do? The kid says, I felt mad. I shoved her back, or I shoved him back. And you say, and then what happened? He fell down. He hit his head. The teacher was mad at me, right? That could happen. In fact, the reason I'm using this example is it happened to a mom I know last week, that this is what she heard from the school about her son. He got shoved out of line. And then another kid jumped in and said, stop shoving. And the third kid who jumped in and said, stop shoving, and tried to be the policeman, both of the other kids shoved him and he fell down and hit his head. Like, it's ridiculous. So of course they got in trouble. He didn't get in trouble, but he shouldn't have been jumping in, first of all. But also, as I said to this mom, we need to help your son. So when someone shoves him, he doesn't shove back. It's hard. You want to shove back, but it's not okay to do. So your kid says to you, what you say, what did you do? And I shoved him back. Oh, you were so mad you shoved him back. Notice I haven't scolded him. I'm trying to understand what happened from his point of view. He thinks he was right. Even if he doesn't think he was right, at the time he thought he was right. And he says, I shoved him back. Oh, and then what happened? He fell down and hit his head or whatever. The teacher yelled at me. Oh, that's so upsetting. And if the kid actually fell down and hit his head, you want to say, was the other kid okay? Yeah, he was fine. He was fine all day. I got in trouble, but he was fine. That's great. And you say, oh, thank goodness he was fine. Or no, he had to get sent to the nurse. He had a big lump on his head. Like, I can see why they were upset and wrote me a note, because he had a big lump on his head. And, it can be very serious when you hit your head. It can be very serious. And I'm sure his parents are very upset about this because they're worried about their child with a big lump on his head. And I'm sure they were very upset. And then what happened? You say, and that notice I haven't scolded him. I've just said, no wonder they were upset. And then what happened? Well, I had to go to the principal's office and they told me I was bad and wrong and a terrible kid. And I always get in trouble and whatever, he says, whatever he says to you. You say, that must've felt so terrible. And then what happened? Well, they told me I can't go to recess all week. And you're like, oh my goodness, like this is not what your kid needs. He's super active. That's why he's pushing people. He does not need to stay in all. And you say, I wish they didn't say that. I wish that wasn't your consequence. Do you think that's going to teach you not to shove someone? No, he shouldn't have shoved me. I mean, you've got a big thing to work on now, right? And you say, I agree with you that it doesn't teach you much to have to stay in from recess. But I do think that it wasn't okay to shove that kid back. He should never have shoved you, but you are old enough to know not to shove him back. Even if he's 6, you're old enough to know not to shove him back. And I expect you to be able to control yourself enough not to shove him back. Even though he shoved you and you were super mad, what else could you have done at that moment? I don't know. I guess I could tell the teacher. Great, bingo. And what would the teacher say? So the teacher might say, stop tattling. And then the kid has no backup. And then we're back at square one, right? But maybe he'll say, I could tell the teacher, she would tell him to stop shoving. You could say, oh, I'm so proud of you. Give me 5. That's great. And this is going to happen again, honey. It will happen with a different kid, maybe with the same kid. It's going to happen again that you're going to get shoved and you're going to be so mad you want to shove back. How are you going to stop yourself next time? Notice I haven't scolded him at all. I'm a partner in figuring out how to self-regulate. That's and we are doing what the school wants, which is to try to avoid him shoving, because we don't need him knocking some kid down so they have a lump on their head and have a concussion. That's not okay, right? We don't want our kid to be that kid. We want him to know that he can control himself. We expect him to control himself. And what can he do when he gets that mad, right?
So nowadays, I guess all the school apply no punishment policy, but now they have this rewarding policy. So what about that? Like, if you do not hit or push or do whatever, you're gonna get, well, they don't offer candies at school, but you're gonna get, something. What about it? Is it the same as punishments, but the other side, or is it okay?
So there's a lot of research about rewards, and we all, human beings, all respond to rewards, but there's a lot of different kinds of rewards. So one reward is the smile on your mother's face or your teacher's face. That's a really powerful reward. It's a wonderful reward. Think about how wonderful it is to have someone who you love, who loves you, smile at you and adore you. Very powerful reward. There's nothing wrong with that reward. And what happens is when we are smiled upon, we learn to smile upon ourselves. So the best reward is the intrinsic reward that comes from inside us, of us smiling on ourselves. Think about it right now, everybody listening, close your eyes and just think, I am a good enough mother. I am a good mother. Or father, if you're a father listening, I am a good father. Feel how good that feels. That's a reward. That's an intrinsic reward, right? And there are other times we feel that same delicious feeling when we give someone else something they want. Our child wants whatever it is, the toy, and the other child, or let's say our child is playing here, I'm playing with this toy and the other child wants it. And when I'm done with it, I'm sort of bored, I'm going to throw it aside. And then I realize this child wanted it. I take the toy and I give it to the other child. I'm giving the toy to you. Now, what happens in between the two of us when I do this? You smile at me like, oh, thank you. And you gave this thing to me. And I feel like, oh, because we're communal creatures. This is how we work together better. One of the ways that human beings get along is that we have a biological feeling of reward when we cooperate with each other. We all want to be of service and be giving to someone else, because it makes us that wonderful feeling as I give it to you, where you look at me that way and I say, I gave that to her. I love that feeling. I want to give her more things. Here, you could have this and this. So that kind of reward is really important. Intrinsic reward. But what if I go to give you this and mom or a teacher or a father or somebody is watching and they say, oh, good girl, you gave her that thing. Good girl, give me 5. You know, I'm going to give you a hug. I'm going to give you a piece of candy. Now, I would be like, oh, that's a powerful thing. That person giving me all that good feeling. And, oh, give me a piece of candy. I like candy. Am I going to have that same delicious feeling inside? Or is that going to be overshadowed by the thing coming to me from outside?
I'm going to get distracted, like from the feeling. I'm going to go after this candy.
Yes, exactly. So there's a lot of research, as I said, on reward. Intrinsic reward, the thing that comes from inside, versus extrinsic reward, which is the thing that comes from outside. So we know that when everyone wants children to love reading and read books and get better at reading, right? When we say to children, write down every book you read, and when you read 10 books, I'm going to give you a prize. It turns out to be a terrible thing to do, because the children, they want the prize. So they read the simplest possible book. I'm going to read this very simple book, and I'm going to put 10 books down as soon as possible to get that prize. I'm not even going to really read the book very well. I'm going to skip very fast through the pages. That's not helping them become readers who love to read, right? Whereas if we say, what was it like to read the book? What did you think? Did you think it was a hard decision the character had to make? Would you have made the same decision? When they love the book, that's a reward, and then they want to read another book, right? Intrinsic reward versus extrinsic. And you can destroy the intrinsic when you have extrinsic rewards. So back to your question about rewards. Well, is it a reward that takes away their own intrinsic motivation?
No.
How can we support their own intrinsic motivation versus taking that away from them?
Like, we should help them to be willing to behave like it should come from themselves, right?
I think there's always a reward for behaving nicely to other human beings. But we don't, I mean, we all want that. We all want to feel like we cooperate and we're loving and loved. But why don't we do it? Well, because something was more important. I really needed this. You might want it, but I need it, right? So what gets in our way is that we don't think our needs will be met otherwise. So we as teachers, as parents, need to support children to know that their needs can be met. We need to be their backup so their needs can be met. And when they interact with another child, we can ask how it felt. How did you feel when he fell down and hit his head? I was still mad, but I was really scared. I was so worried because he was crying so hard. Yes, it must have felt terrible. And what happened then? My teacher yelled at me. What if the teacher said, oh, he's hurting. Oh, let's make him feel better. Oh, sweetheart, I'm so sorry you're hurt. So-and-so knocked you down. He didn't mean to hurt you like that. Come here, we can make you feel better. Quick, get an ice pack, get a cold washcloth, help him feel better. What if we did that and the child was able to, again, feel connected and loving instead of mean and bad, right? That's what we want. We want our child to recognize that they can redeem themselves, that they can have the good feeling from a good interaction, and that they don't have to be I don't have to always give this to somebody else. I wish I could have it, but I'm trying to give to someone else to be a good person. No, you're allowed to use it. And when you're ready, give it to someone else. So I'm allowed to have a voice. I'm allowed to have needs. I'm allowed to express them. Everybody's going to have needs, and that's okay. We're all allowed to have a voice and express it without attacking each other. And we can all be considerate, and we can find a win-win solution. You want this and I want this. How do we do it? Maybe we'll divide it in half, or maybe we'll, you can have it after me. But we are able to find win-win solutions usually if we try. And parents can model this and help kids to do it.
So instead of blaming children for the conflict, we can involve them into the repair or healing or whatever it is, like making them part of the solution instead of going always backwards to the conflict origin.
I love that idea. And I love the word solution. Because even, again, I'll say, even 4-year-olds want to find solutions. And if we say to them, oh, this is such a hard problem, you want to play the game store where you sell things at the store, and you want to play that your children lost in the woods. And but you both want to play together. How are you going to resolve this? This is a hard solution. 4-year-olds will come up with a solution. Maybe they'll decide that there's a store in the woods, or maybe they'll decide that they are not going to play either game and they're going to go outside and play on the playground or something, right? They'll play something different. The point is, children they're very good at coming up with solutions. Once they know that no one is going to be, it's not a win or a lose. We're all going to win here. It's going to be okay. We can come up with something that works for everyone.
I love that. Thank you, Dr. Laura. As we are wrapping up, maybe you could remind parents where we can find you if they need a little extra support. I know you also offer courses. Please do tell a little bit more about.
You can find me online at ahaparenting.com, AHA parenting.com. And it's aha because, at least in the United States, we have a saying like, aha, oh, I get it now. And for parents, we're still learning. And if we don't have to judge ourselves or feel bad about ourselves. You know, if you've been listening to us speaking this whole time and you're thinking, oh, I couldn't parent this way. You don't have to parent this way all at once. Just take one step and be curious. And you're learning how to be a parent. We all are. That's okay. When you learn, you're in a more positive place where you are able to grow. So, aha, I'm learning. So ahaparenting.com, it's 1,000 pages. There's information for parents of children of any age, from babies to teens, and it's free. And on any page of that website, at the bottom of the page, you can sign up for my newsletters, which are also free. They come every week. They have 4 articles in each one, and they remind you how to do the things we've talked about today. Sometimes there's a sibling article. Sometimes there's an article about how to calm yourself down. Sometimes there's an article about how to coach your child when they're having a hard time with their big emotions, right? Or when they're hitting. So you will find, again, for free every week, articles that will support you. And yes, I do have courses. Those do cost money. And I've been told by parents that my Peaceful Parent, Happy Kids online course has helped them more than years of counseling. It's like a parenting boot camp, and you do it and then you have access to it for the rest of your life. So it's there. You can always go back to it. There's a supportive community that helps you when you have a problem. If you feel stuck and you don't know what to do, you take your problem there and they help you sort it out. So I've heard from parents that it's life-changing.
I guess it's all about supporting. Like, we want to support our kids so they know they are not alone. And we as parents, we also need support. And this is good that you can offer that.
Yes.
Thank you very much for the conversation and all the resources. Thank you.
Thank you. It was a pleasure to talk with you.
Bye.